Aloha, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Shōji Kiyohara. I apologize for the audio. The camera is supposed to switch to the microphone on the other side, so you couldn't hear the temple bell. As Keith's brother, and as the resident minister and priest of the Makwa Honganji Buddhist Temple, it is my honor and privilege to officiate the Shōnanoka, or the first 7-day memorial cycle service, following the liturgy of the Jodo Shinshu Honganji tradition of Japanese Mahayana Buddhism. The family asks for your grace and understanding that they prefer not to interact with anyone today via the internet and Zoom. In respect of the family's wishes, please keep your microphone muted at all times. And also, the family's asking if you could turn off your video feed, video cameras as well. We'll see, we've got 73 people. We're just a little worried about too much video. It'll slow things down. So if you will, we are grateful for your grace. The Buddhist service is brief and consists of an opening invocation in which the officiant calls upon the Buddhists to join us, a dedication of the service, chanting of the sutras, reading of the letter on white ashes, and a brief Dharma message. And this will be followed by a personal history and eulogy at the request of the family. We are grateful for your kindness and understanding during this time of great change and great sadness. I will now begin the service. Namanda, Vixanamanda, 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 Vixanamanda. Today, as we gather to observe the first 7-day memorial cycle service in the memory of the late Keith Shōji Kiyohara, Buddhist name, Shaku Shōji, disciple of the Buddha, bright compassion, born into the Pure Land on December 22nd, 2024. Let's pause for a moment to pay homage to Amida, the Buddha of immeasurable light and eternal life, all-inclusive wisdom and all-embracing compassion. Let us deeply reflect on the transient and uncertain nature of life so that we may awaken to a true understanding of things as they are, not relying on our limited human understanding, but on Amida's all-embracing light. Let us live our lives in gratitude for the great benevolence we receive from others, our family, friends, community, and spiritual teachers. As we remember Keith, let us seek to repay our debt of gratitude to those who have gone before us, for their gifts to us, for their influence on others, for their kindness, by deeply listening to the Buddha's teachings, so that as we realize Amida's wisdom, we may manifest compassion to all beings. Please join me in placing our palms together in Gassho and reciting the Nimbus. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Buddha, entrusting in kindness and understanding beyond words. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo. 제법은 요라이 네 Sangeraku. We respectfully call upon the Tathagata Amida, the Tathagata Shakyamuni, the Tathagatas of the 10 directions, to enter this place of practice, joyfully scattering flowers of welcome. Namanda, Vitsanamanda, Vitsanamanda, Vitsanamanda. Namanda. Namanda, Vitsanamanda, 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 Vitsanamanda. In reverent contemplation, we realize that the Buddha, Amida, the Tathagata, in order to deliver all ordinary beings, has made and fulfilled the plan, the merit of which is transferred towards sentient beings by the Tathagata's power. The Buddha, Shakyamuni, manifesting the true purpose of coming upon this earth, expounded Amida's primal vow. The 7 masters of the Pure Land Way transmitted the Tathagata's true intent, explaining the teachings to succeeding generations for millennia. Shinran Shonin, the founder of Jodo Shinshu, manifesting the truth in the Kyogyo Shinsho, denominated it as the true teaching of the Pure Land, and by his sharing the truth of Amida's great compassion, we are now able to become true followers of the Buddha. Hard to repay the blessings we owe to the Buddha, Amida, the Tathagata. Difficult is it to repay the gratitude we owe to our spiritual teachers. Such being the case, may we turn to the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha in the present life and the great path of gratitude, thus attaining birth into the Pure Land and enlightenment, the peace of Nirvana. Here today, the family and friends of the late Keith Shōji Kiyohara, Buddha's name, Shaku Shōji, disciple of the Buddha, bright compassion, born into the Pure Land on December 22nd, 2024, have gathered before Amida Buddha to observe his first 7-day memorial cycle service. We make this dedication as an expression of deep appreciation for the many gifts that we receive from Keith during his life and from all beings, gifts that nurture and sustain our lives, as well as for the rare opportunity we have as human beings to hear and practice the Buddha's teachings. With reverence, we chant Ju Seige, the verses reaffirming the vow, and express our gratitude for the great Namo. がし成仏道妙正長実法苦行未消門生仏小学利欲人少年上映修本業四愚無常道一生天人師人力現代公武将無才道少女三苦名五歳小薬難回避知恵言滅死根門案閉塞小悪道通達全宗門高僧上満足異様老実法日月小寿期天候恩不言一周解放僧公正不徳法上大少女説法四四苦供養一切仏不足修徳本元年心上満得意三害王如仏無下知通達未不詳願学営力と司祭小尊志願脈下大聖の感動国書天に統治妙Please listen quietly to the reading of the letter on white ashes. In deeply contemplating the transient nature of life, nothing is more fleeting than our journey through this world. It is as an all too short journey. Has anyone lived 10,000 years? Life swiftly passes. How many have lived for even 100 years? Whether I go before others, or whether others go before me, whether it is to be today, or whether it is to be tomorrow, who is to know? Those who are sent off before us are as countless as the fragile drops of dew. Though in the morning we may be radiant with health, in the evening we may be white ashes. When the winds of impermanence blow, our eyes are closed forever. As we breathe our last breath, our face loses its color. Our loved ones gather and lament, what to know of it? The body is then carried out to an open field and disappears in smoke which smolders through the night, leaving only white ashes. Is there any expression for such a sad plight? This fragile nature of human existence underlies both the young and old, and we should, therefore, all the sooner turn our hearts to the singularly important matter of true and real life. We should recite the Nembutsu upon having completely entrusted all that we are to the Buddha Amida. In gratitude, we acknowledge these words humbly and respectfully. Humbly and respectfully. Namo Buddhas. The Letter on White Ashes was written by Renyo Shonin, the 8th Monshu, the 8th chief priest of the Honganji in the 15th century in Japan. This letter is read at every memorial service and every funeral in the Honganji tradition because it does capture very real spiritual reality that as human beings, the greatest sadness is to lose a loved one. Buddhism the Buddha also teaches that nothing in this world is permanent, everything changes, no one gets to live forever. But it's in this great change that we are reminded of the preciousness of this moment, of this day of an unrepeatable life. And so we must learn not to take for granted the love and support of family, friends, and community. In this way, Buddhism is teaching us to truly appreciate the gift of this life and to be grateful every day for the gifts that we receive from other people in all forms of love. Buddhism teaches that all life is interconnected. Our lives are only possible through the benevolence of others, the kind and gentle people in our lives. True and real life is not about me, mine, I. Our selfishness is the cause of all the stress, anxiety, and unhappiness in our lives. True and real life is about being kind and gentle to others, thinking pure and beautiful thoughts, saying pure and beautiful words, and doing pure and beautiful things. In the Jodo Shinshu Honganji tradition, when we pass from this world, we are born into the pure land of Amida Buddha, where we realize enlightenment, the perfect peace of nirvana, and we become a Buddha, and we return in oneness with Amida to this world to guide others to true and real life. And this is kindness and understanding beyond words, all-embracing compassion, all-inclusive wisdom, the Buddha Amida working in our lives. So today, 6 days later, Keith is bringing the family and friends and communities together to listen to the Dharma teachings. Keith continues to influence our lives. He continues to guide us, just as we are, to true and real life. So if you will, please close your eyes and think back. Remember the times that Keith made you smile, laugh, feel loved most of all. Remember the times that Keith was kind and gentle to others, even when they didn't deserve it. Remember the times that Keith worked hard, stayed humble, and never gave up to teach you how to find true meaning in this unrepeatable life. Now please open your eyes. The memories of Keith that you cherish in your heart and these emotions that you feel, they continue to show us how to live our lives, to live a true and real life. And by remembering Keith in this way, you honor him, and inevitably you begin to live a true and real life by being kind and gentle to all, by awakening to and being sincerely grateful for your life, just as it is, and by being you, just as you are. Awakening to the compassion and wisdom in your heart enables you to live the values that you learned from Keith, and in this way, he lives on in our lives forever. I'd like to conclude the religious service with the Buddhist aspiration. Let us be grateful for this moment together, united by our aspiration to see the world as it is, not as we would like it to be, so that we may alleviate suffering for all beings. Let us be wise so that we can see both sides of conflict with clarity and not insist that we alone are right. Let us be compassionate so that we can help all people without discrimination or judgment. Let us allow the aloha in our hearts to manifest as mahalo for the great ohana of life and the blessings of the Ainu. In the Honganji tradition, we express gratitude for all-inclusive wisdom and all-embracing compassion, kindness and understanding beyond words in this unrepeatable life by placing our palms together, bowing our heads and saying, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Buddha, entrusting in kindness and understanding beyond words for the great enlightenment to come. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much for taking the time from your busy lives to join, to observe this first 7-day memorial cycle service, the Shōnanoka service in the memory of Keith Shōji Kiyohara. Very grateful for the opportunity to officiate today's service. And this will conclude the memorial service. I'm now going to go down to the floor and I will give a personal history and a eulogy. Thank you. Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. Keith Shōji Kiyohara was born on August 26, 1958, the first son of Akira, Aki, and Ruby Etsuko Kiyohara, maiden name Nakawatase, at the Queen of Angels Hospital in Los Angeles, California. Keith was elder brother to second son, Kari Yukio Kiyohara, and first daughter, Tamiko Kiyohara, married name Matsubara. Keith grew up on West 27th Street in South Central Los Angeles, north of the University of Southern California. He went surf fishing with our father, Aki, and Uncle Lefty early in the morning on holidays, helped Dad with his gardening route on Saturdays, and absolutely loved the annual family gatherings in Auntie Mary and Uncle Lucky's house for Christmas, and then Auntie Sachi and Uncle Hideyoshi Nakawatase's house, and Bachan Chieko Kiyohara's house for New Year's Day. Keith attended the Senshin Buddhist Church growing up, and as a son of a Kiyohara, he was quite active. He was expected to be quite active, including Sunday school, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Young Buddhist Association, and the Saturday Japanese School. With his way above average height and a strong competitive streak, Keith was a standout player in the Nikkei Japanese American Youth Basketball Leagues. Our mother, Ruby Kiyohara, took us to the museums near the Rose Garden and Coliseum regularly, including the Museum of Science and Industry, where the working model of a rocket engine was a big draw in the 1960s. You can see Keith smiling and figuring out the mathematics behind how this rocket engine worked. Living so close to USC in the 1960s meant that we were considered underprivileged neighborhood kids. And thus we were given the chance to attend Troy Camp, a summer camp in the mountains, which is a big deal if you're growing up in the inner city, and a whole variety of on-campus programs. And it's through these USC programs for local, neighborhood kids that Keith discovered the brave new world of computer science. Keith attended 32nd Street Elementary School, Fauché Junior High School, and a year at Manual Arts High School. I would like to mention that these are all predominantly Black schools at the time. And so Keith grew up as a minority among minorities. We were able to get permit to transfer out of our district as part of affirmative action. So Keith then went to Fairfax Senior High School in the Jewish part of town to help integrate an all-white school. It just turned out that all the white kids were Jewish, which was an interesting experience for all of us. Keith was accepted to the University of Southern California, but he dropped out at age 19 when a summer internship at a prominent defense contractor led to an offer for full-time employment. Majken shares that Keith was the only person who had the experience with the new mainframe computers that the defense contractors had just purchased and installed. Now, Keith just happened to have the knowledge and experience with these mainframes because he'd played with these mainframes in the computer science labs at USC. Eventually, tiring of the corporateness of the defense industry, Keith embarked on a journey that leads to architecting software for breakthroughs in video games, facial recognition, and micro-LED production technology for augmented reality, contact lenses. So imagine this, Keith was working on a project where the augmented reality data is transmitted not to your glasses, but to your contact lenses. Imagine that. The CEO of one of the companies where Keith worked, 3D Graphics, tells the story of how Keith was the only software engineer who ever showed up for the interview wearing a black suit, but we hired him anyway. Keith applied his mathematical and computer wizardry to railroad infrastructure in Boston, a project that he was particularly proud of because it helped make people's lives better every day in a very concrete way. A true Kiyohara, Keith raved about the food in Boston, especially the clam chowder. Keith's claim to fame and geek legend status was his role in the creation of the game Dungeons of Daggerath in 1983, which was a huge hit in the early days of video games and personal computers, and even today enjoys a cult following. This game introduced innovations that we take for granted now, such as the heartbeat metaphor for the player's heart, for the player's health, audio cues and sound effects that were directional. So it's like something's coming from the right. Forced perspective vector graphics and multi-level mazes. It's all crammed into an unbelievably small capacity 8 kilobyte chip. It's not megabytes, we're talking kilobytes here. 8 kilobyte chip on the TRS-80 color computer, which was one of the first successful personal computers. This game, Dungeons of Daggerath, was so impactful for so many people growing up in the early days of personal computers, that Dungeons of Daggerath is a key plot point in the best-selling novel Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, which Steven Spielberg then produced and directed as a hit movie in 2018. Keith continued to work in breakthrough innovations in online commerce, facial recognition, and particularly the facial recognition one was a venture that was eventually bought out by Google. So at Google, Keith was actually most proud of his software designs that enable the instant upload of photographs from your smartphone to Google Photos, which has more than 1 billion users around the world. So in this way, Keith is truly making a difference in everyone's lives every day. Keith also worked on the breakthrough geolocation-based game Ingress for Niantic, which was the precursor to today's wildly popular Pokemon Go game. More recently, Keith was innovating new technologies in micro-LED fabrication, which was originally for putting the AR into contact lenses. Imagine that. Keith met Majken in 1991 at 3D Graphics Incorporated, where Keith was the lead programmer, and Majken was the lead for quality assurance. Now, Keith would tell you that nothing he ever did was good enough for Majken. She was always complaining, insisting this or that could be better. Now, Majken will tell you, apparently Keith liked my complaining so much, he married me. So together, they were the parents of Kiana, Kalani, and Trent. Majken shares that Keith's only regret was the year he worked 80 hours a week in a startup venture he was aiming for the big payout, because he realized he was missing so much of Kalani and Kiana when they were little. So when Keith became a grandparent for the first time with the birth of baby Kira, you could tell he intended to be the best grandpa ever, and he couldn't hide his joy and delight in seeing and playing with Kira. Keith was also the uncle with the best toys to our son Kendall, and a very kind grand uncle to Melody and Cadence, our grandchildren. And he's somehow related to an immeasurable number of people through the Kiyohara and Nakawatase extended families, many of whom are joining the service today. Keith is fondly remembered by his family as passionate, competitive, the protector of the family, practical-minded, individualistic, moral, dedicated, witty, welcoming, stalwart, pragmatic, kind. Kalani remembers Keith reading bedtime stories to her and Kiana every night, creating unique voices and mannerisms for each character. And to this day, Kalani has a tattoo of her favorite quote from The Hobbit. Kalani also remembers Keith as a dad who listened and did not judge. Quote, "No matter where I was coming from, he was always being there to greet me with an open ear for all the life updates, and in my adult life, with a cocktail in hand." Trent remembers Keith as having lived his life and his truth how he wanted to, which included always sharing his office with Trent, letting Trent sit on his lap and playing games together, then growing up playing games together. Keith was always sharing his endless collections of cool stuff, each piece with a story to tell. Kiana remembers Keith as being larger than life, both literally and figuratively. Getting tossed into the air by a 6'4" daddy to the sound of Frank Sinatra singing, "Fly me to the moon," is a cherished memory. And that's the reason why Fly Me to the Moon was a song that she and Stephen chose for their first dance at their wedding. It'd be really easy to define Keith by his brilliant mind, his technical achievements, and a geeky sense of humor, as well as the serious way he approached his roles and responsibilities as the eldest son, older brother, loving husband, dedicated father, sweet grandfather, and his continued professional success well into his 60s. But Keith was also an adventurer, a fierce competitor, and a bit of a rascal. Nice Japanese American boys don't have ponytails. So early on, Keith raced go-karts, seriously fast go-karts, which led to an accident where another driver was crashed and pushed Keith into a wall of tires, breaking his ankle in multiple places. Keith, many of you probably didn't know this, but Keith was actually also a stealthy pool shark. He was a hustler. He had an uncanny ability to calculate the angles of any shot on a billiard table, but he would smile and act exactly like the Asian geek that he appeared to be, causing people to underestimate him as a player. Now, the rumor that Keith had a pool cue named Lucille is true. Okay, that's not true. That was Uncle Phil on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in 1991. But Keith did indeed have his own custom-made breakdown pool cue, and was a respected player and welcome friend at many places, the billiard bars that were popular during the time. I think Keith is probably the greatest Star Wars geek of all times. Did you know that Keith and I waited for hours in a line that circled around the block of Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood for the opening of Star Wars in 1977? After the film, Keith excitedly explained how the THX sound technology worked, but he was also incredibly excited about how computers would one day be used to replace the mechanical special effects. So, using models and wires and stuff like that, and how the computers would eventually create new worlds, and that this horizon was just coming to us. Of course, this was 2:00 in the morning, chowing down to two double doubles, double chili cheeseburgers with extra jalapenos from Tommy's Original on Rampart. Not everybody knows that Keith was a pinball wizard at a local pub near USC, but this is when we were kids. We'd walk straight to the pub on a hot summer day, go straight to the pinball machines, where Keith would proceed to destroy the high score. The guys who were in the bar would be upset, they'd challenge him, and Keith would, I wouldn't say we were betting money, okay, we were, But that's how we were able to spend hours in an afternoon. We didn't have a lot of money, so he was hustling quarters so that we could play the pinball machines. At USC, Keith was a good older brother. He showed me how to play Asteroids, if you're familiar with the classic game Asteroids, on $1 million Deck 10 mini computer in the Keck Computing Center. And you play the game by flipping external switches on the outside of the computer box. There's this little tiny screen, and you're flipping these switches. Now, I'm pretty sure we weren't supposed to be doing that with USC's very expensive computers. Majken will tell you that Keith had to have every video game console and game cartridge in existence. That was for research and work purposes, of course. Yes, they're pieces of history and museum quality, but really a whole shed full of stuff. Majken shared that Kalani and Kiana had many friends at school who would hand them a game cartridge and beg them, get your dad to play it, so that they could go to the next level. Keith and Majken own a home on the island of Bornholm in Denmark, where Majken is originally from, and where Keith became a well-known friend and neighbor, drinking buddy, and welcoming host for cocktails and dinners. Now, Keith had established the home office of his dreams, the fabulous view of the ocean, and he was really looking forward to working remotely from Bornholm, and especially taking a stroll along the coast to the smokehouse in Svaneke, where he would enjoy a local beer and smoked herring. Keith's passion for pickleball continued on in Bornholm, where he kept a pickleball net, paddles and balls. And over the past 3 years, Keith introduced more and more friends to the sport. He was delighted. Keith was absolutely delighted to hear that there's now a pickleball club organizing events on Bornholm year-round. Now, this pickleball connection extends in really surprising directions, all the way to my friend Brad from high school and college days. They reconnected, so Keith and Brad reconnected on a pickleball court at the local park. I was stunned to hear that Keith and Brad had become pickleball partners who took an evil delight in smashing the egos of much younger players who thought they could dust the old guys. And so Keith will be remembered as many things: a son, a brother, a cousin, a relative, a loving husband, devoted father, a nice guy, a true friend, a brilliant software architect, and a fearsome pickleballer. But what Keith wanted most of all was to make a difference in people's lives, to help other people, which he was able to do many times as a son, a brother, cousin, uncle, husband, father, grandfather, software architect, workplace colleague, business partner, and friend. Keith touched the lives of everyone that he met. Even in death, Keith continues to help people as an organ donor. Keith was a very passionate believer in organ donation, and he and Majken talked about organ donation very openly, donating one's organs when you die, very openly with the children. So Keith's selfless generosity reflects the Buddhist ideal of dana, giving without any expectation of recognition or reward. In this way, Keith's spirit of giving back and paying it forward continues on long after his physical form has returned to white ashes. The great American poet Maya Angelou says this: "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." The wisdom of the great poet Maya Angelou, who lived from 1928 to 2014. So today, we say thank you, Keith, for being part of our lives, for making us feel loved, welcomed, and appreciated, just as we are. Thank you for listening to us, for not judging us, for making us laugh with your wacky sense of humor, and for always offering to make us our favorite cocktails. We say thank you, Keith, for reminding us in this moment of this day of an unrepeatable life of the utmost importance of the love and support of family and friends and communities. The reality as it is that we are all interconnected and interdependent. We say thank you, Keith, for creating the time, place, and occasion that brings us all together here today. In the Honganji tradition, we put our hands together in Gassho. We bow our heads and say Namo Amida Butsu, entrusting in kindness and understanding beyond words, the Buddha Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. On behalf of the family, I would like to thank all of you for the many expressions of caring and concern and the countless offers of support during this time of great change. Your compassion has been a source of comfort, strength, and serenity for the family during this very difficult time. The family is very grateful for your grace and understanding the family's desire not to interact with you today by Zoom, and for allowing the family time and space to adapt to this great change. Keith didn't want to have a formal funeral for himself, but always respected tradition. And the family thanks you for helping observe the tradition today of the 7th day memorial cycle service. Keith wanted to have his ashes scattered at sea, with family and friends celebrating his life, and cocktails, many, many cocktails. The family will be making arrangements for Keith's celebration of life in the new year. The family would also like to express its profound gratitude for everyone who is helping to support his dream and his vision of building a college fund for his grandchildren, beginning with baby Kira, by donating to the GoFundMe that was set up by Majken. In lieu of flowers and the Japanese tradition of oko-den, monetary expression of caring, the family asks that you consider making a donation to a GoFundMe that she has set up. Let me see if I can get the slide up. Okay, if you scan this QR code, you'll be able to go to the website and you can make a donation there. Well, thank you very much for joining us and the family today. May your day be filled with aloha. Namo Amida Butsu.